Yet another big Benghazi bombshell raising questions about the investigation into the September 11, 2012 attacks that left 4 Americans dead in Libya. Former State Department official Raymond Maxwell says associates of Hillary Rodham Clinton were involved in a scrubbing operation of documents before they were handed over to the Benghazi ARB, or the Accountability Review Board. Investigative journalist Sharyl Attkisson broke the story, joins us right now live from D.C. Good morning to Sharyl.
Good morning.
Okay, so State Department was told, put all the documents together. We're going to send them to this review board. Mr. Maxwell, walks in on a weekend, odd hours, and there, one of the people who works for him, they're scrubbing the documents. Anything that makes Hillary look bad, they're taking out.
He heard about this. He heard people speaking of it, and he decided to check it out for himself. So he came in on a Sunday in this basement room, he says, underneath the jogger's entrance, and asked the office director, who technically worked for him, but he had not been consulted, he says, about her assignment, what was going on. And she said, we are to separate, according to him, any documents that could prove embarrassing or damaging to the 7th floor and the front office, 7th floor being Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and her top advisors. He says he asked her, but isn't that unethical? And he says that she replied, Ray, those are our orders.
And they apparently came from the 7th floor. So he's there, he's watching. There's Hillary in Iowa with Tom Harkin over the weekend. So Mr. Maxwell is there watching the scrubbing operation. And who walks in but a couple of confidants of Hillary Rodham Clinton's?
He says after he was there a few minutes, in walked the Secretary of State's Chief of Staff, Cheryl Mills, as well as the Deputy Chief of Staff, Jake Sullivan. According to Maxwell, he knew both of them. He says maybe Cheryl Mills hadn't remembered meeting him before because he says that she sort of snapped, who is that, referring to him, and that Jake Sullivan said, that's Ray Maxwell, a Deputy Assistant Secretary, and she said, okay. After that, he says the employee, the office director, and an intern moved into a periphery office and sorted through some papers. The papers he looked at were telegrams, he says, and cables between the Tripoli embassy and the State Department that had gone back and forth in those pre-attack months. And he says he didn't feel right about it, and after a short period of time, he left.
Right. He's come forward because he's heard, Mr. Maxwell has, because he's heard that the ARB had unfettered access. Well, as it turns out, it looks like they got a scrubbed copy of the documents. But if this story is true, and doubtless he's going to be called before the Select Committee, perhaps destruction of federal documents and, at the very least, withholding documents from Congress, those are a couple of pretty big charges.
Well, it will be, I suppose it would be somewhat difficult to prove. A lot of time has gone by. People have had a chance, if this occurred, what's alleged, to get their story straight. Documents have disappeared or gone missing in other high-profile cases involving federal agencies that we know about. So we'll see if they can get to the bottom of it. But Congressman Jason Chaffetz said yesterday that there could be criminal referrals coming out of something like this, depending on what they find out. It's a very serious allegation, obviously.
It is a very serious allegation, and what makes it curious is Fox and you at Daily Signal are pretty much the only ones reporting this. Mainstream media has other stuff to talk about. All right.
Well, let me point out we did a piece also for Sinclair Television, which has ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox affiliates across the country. So maybe 30 million local news viewers got to see the report as well.
That is good news. All right, Sharyl Attkisson, join us from D.C. Keep up the good reporting.
Thank you.
You bet.